Hello, hello to everybody. Nice to see you all joining us for another webinar. Now, today there might be fewer familiar faces in the audience since today's webinar is all about onboarding teams to TaxDome. So many of you watching might be employees of firms that just started switching over to our platform, and we certainly welcome you today. We'll be starting in a few moments, so stay put for now. We'll just give everybody a chance to kind of join here and make sure that they don't miss much. In the meantime, either say hi in the chat or check out the Q&A section on the right side of your screen. We have a team online today that will be keeping an eye on all your questions. So whenever something is unclear or you want to ask something specific, feel free to do so, and our team is going to help you out. We also tend to send useful links throughout the webinar in the chat. So you should also keep an eye on that if you want to learn a little bit more about some of the topics that we're going to discuss later. All right, everybody, I think we've waited long enough. So let's go over our agenda for today. Then we're going to jump into all the topics. All right, so this is what we'll be talking about today. We'll start by giving you a quick overview of all the pages you'll be visiting regularly. This means we'll start at the very basics to help you familiarize yourself with TaxDome. Once we're done with that, we'll start focusing on the most important concepts and functions that you would be using. This will range from learning about the CRM, exploring the way documents are handled in TaxDome, using the bulk actions, and of course, creating and managing your jobs and tasks. We'll then wrap things up by summarizing a general daily work process to help you remember the most important things. Our goal with today's webinar is to help you, meaning the firm members who are new to TaxDome, so you can start using TaxDome to its fullest. This means that we will cover a lot of different topics, and it will be a longer webinar than normal. So we'll have a bit of a mixed approach today. We will teach you what the different pages in TaxDome are for, how they work, what the important functions do, and so on. But we also want to be able to jump right into your work as soon as possible. So near the end of the webinar, after we're done teaching you the basics, we will do a quick run through of the most common things that you'll be doing day in and day out. Also, we know that not everybody here has the exact same responsibilities. So we will try to give examples that'll cover different types of employees that are out there. Okay, well, give me just a moment here. I'm going to switch to the screen portal and then we're going to get started. Okay, so just as a quick note, we will be revisiting these pages throughout the webinar and clarifying more things about them. So don't worry if we don't spend too much time on them right now in the overview section. We're going to focus on them more as they become relevant. Now, another note is that you might not have access to all of the pages and content that we're going to be discussing. This is because every employee has their own set of access rights that the firm owner customizes. Therefore, depending on what your work generally requires you to do, they will give you access to those functions, but not necessarily everything that's in the system. All right, so now that all of that is clear, let's get started here. The first thing that you will see when you log in is our Insights page. It shows you everything you might want to pay attention to, like your pending work, which in TaxDome we call jobs, and all the things on your to-do list, which we call tasks. This page also shows you all items that your clients haven't completed yet, like organizers, contracts, pending signatures, and more. Just to confirm, this is just information that is important to you and not the entire firm. So you won't see details about other employees' tasks and so on in this section. Now, when it comes to how you'll know when clients reach out to you or complete something that you've been waiting to do for them, your Inbox Plus will be your best friend going forward. Instead of having to check the status of your clients one by one, you will have a customizable notification center where you get notified about everything that's important for you. So, if one of your clients were to, let's say, sign a proposal you sent, or someone from your team assigned a new task to you to complete, or really anything else that happens that you should know of, you will always know about it right here, right away. Now, if you do get a lot of notifications, you will be happy to see that you have this option to filter notifications, either by the type or by the client account that they are related to. Also, by default, you will receive the same notifications by email. So if I open my settings page, you'll see that there's a whole section right here on the right where you can adjust which notifications you'll receive and also where you will get them. Now, this is what I meant when I said that it is a customizable notification center. If you don't want something to appear in your Inbox Plus or in your email, well, great, you can control it right here. All right, let's go to the clients page now. Here, you'll be able to see all your clients once you create their accounts or you import them. For the majority of you, your firm owner or an admin likely already took care of this, so you'll just have a list of them ready for you to go. As you might expect, you will visit this page often when you need to interact with your clients, so we will be revisiting this page soon enough. The workflow page is the main place where you'll keep track of all your jobs and your tasks. Now, you might be wondering, what's the difference between these terms that are right up here? Well, we will be covering that after we are done with this overview, and we're going to dig into that more, so don't worry about that. But for now, I just wanted to show you how the different views look, so we will get back to the contents of this later. This page shows you all your internal tasks and jobs in a calendar view. There are other ways to view them, but if you prefer seeing everything like this, well, great, then you have the option. The next one is the documents page, which lets you view both all recently uploaded documents and all your clients' folders if you switch to that tab up here. You can access all your clients' files from their individual accounts, but this is an alternative way that allows you to quickly switch between your clients. Next in line, we've got the wiki page. This is where you can find all internal documents that your firm has created. So whether it's an outline for processes you're supposed to handle, full SOPs, or even some mini tutorials that help you use TaxDome, you're going to find them all right here. These can also be shared with clients, but their primary function is to provide readily available internal resources to you and your team. I also want to mention that if you don't know how to handle something in the portal, and there are no wiki pages about that, you can certainly reach out to our support team whenever you need help, or if you just have some questions, feel free to do so at any time. We are here to help you. Use this help icon in the top right corner of the page, then click on Get Help and switch here to Ask. Alternatively, just take a look at our Help Center and you'll find articles and videos about basically everything you could possibly need. Now, let's go right into the Invoices page. As the name suggests, this is where you will see all information regarding your invoicing, meaning the actual invoices, payments, and your time entries. So if you need to check the status of some of your invoices, this is the place to visit. Now, the next page we want to visit is one for proposals and engagement letters. You see, you'll likely be sending out a lot of these, so we created a separate page for them for easy access. You'll see a full list of all the ones you sent to your clients, and more importantly, the status of each. So it's really easy to keep track of them right here. We're almost done with the overview here, so let's keep moving on. The settings page is where you will control a lot of things, but what exactly will certainly vary between all of you since it depends on what permissions you were given. Some of you might be able to edit the website, create and edit templates, or even change the firm's settings and details. Regardless though, at a base level, it's where you'll take care of your own settings, such as your photo, password, or your preferred notifications. And finally, one of the most important things that you have in TaxDome is the Plus New menu. It's here in the top left corner. And what it does is basically gives you a shortcut to create any of these items you see here, ranging from accounts all the way up to jobs. Now, I cannot stress enough how useful this menu is on a day-to-day basis. So please make sure to keep it in mind whenever you need to do anything inside of TaxStone. Now, we will be revisiting the pages that we just went through, but for now, that covers our overview. This also seems like kind of a good point to take a short little break here and give you a few moments to get your questions into the Q&A section, and our team will be happy to answer them. So I'm going to pause here for just a little bit, let everybody catch their breath, and then we will continue. Okay, everybody, that gave everybody a few seconds here to get their questions in, which our team will be working on right now. So let's get back on track here. Since we left off on this page in the settings, let me show you two things that you should do while we're here. There are two things we recommend doing right off the bat when you start using TaxStone. At the bottom of the My Account tab in your settings, you will see a button to download the Windows app. If you're using a Windows computer, then I definitely recommend downloading this right away and then installing it. Now, someone from our team will post a link to a page you can download it from in the chat, so keep an eye on that. And we'll talk about the ways it helps you a little bit later, but you can make sure that you're ready for that topic by installing the app. After you take care of that, we can focus on the other important function in this page. You'll see this section entitled Email Sync. As the name and the button here implies, you will want to sync your email with TaxStone, but let me explain what it means. The email sync function lets you connect an email address, and that allows you to send emails to your clients directly through the portal. In addition to that, it lets you see new incoming emails and also your past conversations, all while filtering out any emails that aren't tied to your client's email address. Now, this isn't everything that it does. Besides saving you time by letting you send and view emails right here, you'll also get to see the email conversations your clients have had with your other team members. This means that you will get access as a shared inbox inside each client account where you'll have all your emails organized in one place. Now, with most other things related to the setup, your firm owner and admins can take care of it, but this is something that you can do yourself. Therefore, that's the reason why we decided to talk about this first right after the overview we just had. So now that that's clear, we can get back to the syncing process. You will want to simply enter your email address here and click the button right below it. You'll then be redirected to a new page where you will have to log into the email address and then confirm the sync by either giving it some permissions or following a few other steps depending on who your email provider is. Now, we're not going to spend time here going over all the possible scenarios, but instead, we'll just post a link to a help article in the webinar chat on the right, and you can then follow the instructions there. It's not a difficult process, I promise. As you can see in my case, I'm already back in my portal. The only other thing I want to do is go back to my settings page and enable the two new toggles that have magically appeared in the email sync section. You should do this the same, as it will help you in the future. All right, now that I am done with my setup here, we're going to move right along to talk about your accounts list. We'll go back to the clients list here in the sidebar, and you'll be greeted by all the clients you have access to. I phrased it like that on purpose because you might not see every single client that your firm has. The clients you see are just the ones that you've been given access to. Now, it is possible for your firm to give you access to everybody if they want, But it is more common to just do that for somebody who needs that, meaning the firm owner, admins, maybe receptionists, or really anybody who needs constant access to everybody and all of their information. Now, for somebody like a bookkeeper or a tax preparer, for example, that's not going to be necessary and you'll have specific access. So let's quickly clarify something right away, since it's always one of the first questions we see. What are accounts and what are contacts? You'll notice that the clients list is split into two tabs, and that's because we differentiate those two types. Let's take a look at this slide to clear up the difference. Accounts can be either a business or an individual. They are the entities you will work for and bill. Contacts, on the other hand, are the individual people who will be linked to those accounts. Let me give you an example here. You can have one account for an entire family, but then you will have multiple contacts for the family members who will then be linked to that family account. Another example would be an account for a firm you're working for, but the owner and employees are linked to that account. Whatever the case, the account will be its own entity, and all the information, items, and documents related to it will always be available when you open it. This information will be useful in case you have to add new clients to the portal. The easiest way to do that will be by using the plus new menu that I showed you a little earlier. Just open it, click on account, and you'll get to enter all of their details. Now, I'd recommend trying to create a test account for yourself with a personal email address, just so you can test things out from a client perspective if necessary, but also to get familiar with the account creation process. Okay, so now that it's clear what accounts are and also how you can make new ones, let me point out one thing here. You will generally interact with accounts and not the individual contacts. This is because all the important information you'll need regarding them is tied to the account itself. You can see this when I open one of the accounts from my list here. You'll see these different sections here, but also a bar at the top of the screen that holds all the tabs where their important things are. So when you want to send an organizer, you'll send it to the account. If you want to send an invoice, you'll send it to the account. If it's a proposal, same deal, and so on and so on. Everything will be accessible within the client's account. So this way, you'll have everything neatly organized, and it'll be really easy for you to find anything that you're looking for. Now, at this point, there is no need for us to visit each one of these tabs and explain them one by one. So instead, we'll just focus on the ones you will visit most regularly, or in other words, the Info and Docs tabs. The other ones are very straightforward, so you really won't need to spend time learning about those. Okay, so let's go to the Info tab first, as that one won't take too long to explain. Okay, here you'll see all the details about the client, meaning all their account information, the linked contacts, and if you click on the contact names like this, you'll also see all their contact information. This, of course, means that it's the place you'll visit whenever you need some details about a client, but it's also the place you'll go if you need to edit their information. Now, that can involve writing some more information that was previously missing, linking new contacts to their account, or even using this function right here to view the client portal from their perspective. The last function is useful if your client has some issues and you want to offer them some help by walking them through it, since you will be able to show them exactly what they should do. Okay, so that's it for the Info tab. So we will be moving over to the Docs tab in a moment, but first, let's take another quick break here just to give you all a chance to take a little breather, but also to send us any questions that you might have at this point. Once again, the team is watching over the Q&A section. They'll be happy to clear up anything that you still might be curious about. So we'll just pause here for a few seconds and then we'll get started. Okay, everybody, hopefully you've had enough time to send in some of your questions. If not, just keep plugging away at that. And you can send them at any point throughout the webinar. So nothing to worry about. You can send them at any time. All right, so let's focus on the documents part now. I already showed you the other documents page during our portal overview a little earlier, but this is another place you can access it from. Functionally, they're almost identical. The main difference is that you have a couple more tabs here for even easier navigation, but you can't switch quite as easily to another client's documents from here, so that's really the trade-off. Either way though, there are a couple of things that we need to talk about that are all related to documents. So let's take a look at this slide to see exactly what that is. We'll start by clearing up how the folders work in TaxDome. Then we'll need to talk about the different ways to upload documents, including the ones done by the Windows app. And lastly, we need to talk about the other functions you have access to besides uploading. So let's dive right into it. When it comes to folders, the main thing you need to know about are the privacy rights. Your firm has most likely already set up the folder structure they intend to use moving forward, so you really won't need to worry about that. You just need to understand which folders are the ones you need. In this example, we have a pretty standard folder structure with a folder for documents that the client uploads, a folder for the documents you and your team upload for the client to see, and a private folder that the client cannot view. Yours might not be named the same way, but the icons on the right side of the screen will still help you understand which ones you will want to use for what. These privacy rights determine what the client can do with the contents of each folder. But let me go over it again with the help of this slide. These are the three settings. Client can view and edit, which means that the client can access all the contents within this folder type and also edit them. Client can view, which only allows the client to view and download the files and folders. And finally, private, which, as the name would imply, is not visible to the client whatsoever, but instead it's just for you and your team. Also, one more thing to keep in mind is that subfolders have the same privacy rights as their parent folders. So let's go back to the portal again. Now that you know that there's a difference between what the client can do with the files in these folders, you can easily tell where you would want to upload something. If you're a bookkeeper and you want to upload a spreadsheet for your client to see, you will put it into a folder with Client Can View rights. That way, you'll be sure that they have easy access to it and all the information you entered into the sheet will remain exactly as it is. We'll also share a help article in the chat that goes over this in more detail. So if you're not 100% clear on something, please take a look at that. Next up, we need to talk about uploading. You'll be doing this on a regular basis, so it is very important for you to know how to upload documents for your clients. TaxDome has a lot of ways you can upload files, but when it comes down to your personal preference, it's all about how you want to do it. In our document management webinar, we talk about all the different ways to upload your documents. In today's webinar, we will try to streamline this process a little bit more since we still have a lot to talk about today. I will give you a situation and then the best way to handle that upload. So you're in the portal already and you want to upload one or more documents for a client right away. Depending on what page you're on, you can approach this in two different but very similar ways. If you're not in the client's document page, then the easiest way to upload it is by opening the plus new menu and then selecting the document option there. That will start the upload process. Now, the other way I mentioned is used when you're already in the client's document page, since you don't necessarily need to use any button, but instead you can simply drag and drop the files into your portal. This way, you can save yourself a couple of clicks. Now, let me just show you the rest of the upload process. because you get to do some more things before confirming the upload, regardless of whether or not you're doing it from here or via the plus new menu. First, you'll get to decide which folder you want to upload the documents to, but then you've got a couple more options. The first section has a couple of toggles that let you choose if you want to notify your client about the upload, if you want to mark it as read for them right away, which is useful when uploading older files that you don't really need them to look at. If you want your team to be notified when the client opens the document, and finally, if you want to request approval on the document. Now, we'll get back to this later when we talk more about the functions you'll use when you use this feature. Now, besides these toggles, you can add a description if you want and link the documents to invoices or to jobs. And this saves you time if you do it right away, since you won't need to open up different pages or do it separately afterwards. Now, one more note here. If you're uploading multiple documents, then you can choose these settings separately for each document. There's this button in the top right corner that lets you do that. This way, you could link the document to different jobs or lock only some of them to invoices without needing separate uploads. Whatever the case, though, you can take care of it right here. That's really it for this process, and you'll likely do this exactly this way quite often when you just need to upload a simple document and you want to do things as soon as possible. Okay, so let's talk about the Windows app briefly because it just might make your work a lot easier. We mentioned near the beginning of the session where you can install the Windows app from. In case you missed it, we'll also post a link in the chat to a help article where you can download it from as well. Anyhow, I've installed it already, so I'm going to show you how you can use it. This little window that you see here is the Windows app. It doesn't replace the portal, but it instead provides you some extra tools to help you manage your documents. You can upload files through it in a similar way as the portal, meaning either by using the plus new button or by dragging files into the window. You get to select the client, the folder, and use any of these other options if necessary before uploading it. However, this isn't necessarily more or less convenient than doing it through the portal. This is why we'll focus on a new way to upload documents that you couldn't do without the app. Once you install the app and log into it, you'll also get access to the TaxDome Drive. It appears in your computer's file explorer as just another drive. However, you get to access all the files and folders that you can see in your portal directly from your computer. On top of all of this, all of the contents are synced with the portal. So whatever you do in the drive will sync with your portal. So this means that I can simply open an accounts folder, drag some files into it, and they'll all be instantly uploaded to TaxDome. So you'll be able to access them from anywhere. On top of that, you can also freely edit the files using your native software, and after you're done and save the changes, the files in TaxDome will be updated with the new version without you having to re-upload it or to do a thing. So you can likely tell how easy this makes it to make changes to files that you normally wouldn't be able to edit directly through your TaxDome portal. There's still one more way to upload files that you will certainly be using. That is the print to TaxDome function. The way it works is whenever you try to print a document, regardless of whether it's from your tax software or from a web browser, you will be able to choose TaxDome as a virtual printer. After clicking on the print button, it will appear in the TaxDome app I showed you a little earlier. And from there, you can proceed with the upload as you normally would. We should switch to the actual ways you'll interact with documents now, but first, let's take another short break. Our document management system has a lot to it, and I'm sure you can tell by now There's a lot in there that you might have questions on, so it's best not to jump ahead right away. So if you want to find out a little bit more about something, once again, leave your question in the Q&A. Our team will get right to it. So we're going to take a brief little pause here, give you a moment to type in your questions if you have them so our team can get working on it, and then we're going to continue. Okay, everybody, break time over here. Hopefully you got your questions here. Let's continue. We'll highlight the three most important functions here. Now, there are more, of course, but these are the ones you will find yourself using most commonly. The built-in PDF editor, requesting approvals, and requesting signatures. Now, as we've been doing throughout the entire webinar here today, we will make sure to continue sending help article links in the chat so you can have them on hand if you want a more in-depth look at how something works here. So for now, let's jump into this. I'll just use this document right here as my example for today. So right away, I'll confirm that you can open documents directly inside your portal to view them. However, if they're a PDF, you not only get to view them, but you also get to edit them right here. You can see the editor toolbar here on the top of the document. Using these tools lets me write, draw, or highlight directly on the document. I can insert stamps, links, notes, images, and more, as well as reorder the pages or even delete them or add new ones. So with this, you can make various adjustments to your documents on the fly, and all the changes you make will always be synced. So you, your team members, and your clients will always see the same version of the documents. Whether you need to highlight sections for clients or completely remove unnecessary parts, you will be able to do it without needing to download the files, use a third-party software, then re-upload them, and then make sure that you've got the right document. The best way to learn more about the editor is simply by playing around with it. So just upload a PDF, test it out, play around with it, and you'll see how easy it is. All right, let's move on to requesting approvals. Keep one thing in mind when it comes to requesting both approvals and signatures. The documents need to be uploaded to a folder with the client can view rights, meaning the ones with the green eye icon. Otherwise, you won't have the option to create the requests. Now, the most common use for the approval function is to get your clients to approve your drafts. You can either request the approval as you're uploading a document, like you've seen earlier, or if it's already been uploaded, click on the three dots and select Edit. In this menu, you'll then be able to request approval and your client will be notified about it. It's really, honestly, as simple as that. You just need to wait for the client to approve or disapprove, and that's it for this process. But finally, let's talk about signature requests. Regardless of what services you're offering, chances are you'll need your client to sign a document at some point. It's often more convenient to handle this via proposals, but if it has to be signed on a specific document or a specific form, you can use the request signature function. The first step will be to click on the three dots on the right of the document and then select request signature. That will load a new page where it will give you access to all the tools that you need for this. To place a signature field for a client, you'll want to choose the correct signer in this menu, and then you'll drag the signature field into the document. You can do the same thing with these other fields as well, and I'm sure you'll agree that this is pretty straightforward and you can't really mess this up. It's nice and easy. As soon as you place the signature fields, you could send out the request, but Let's go through the other important fields in this menu as well, just to avoid any possible confusion. The template field lets you pick any signature template you have and then places all the signature fields from it onto the document that you open here. That way, you don't need to drag them all in manually. Your team should have likely prepared these ahead of time, so we won't go into the creation process today, but once again, we will leave a link to the help article explaining the process just in case you'd like to see how it works. All right, so underneath that, you have the Choose Signer field, which we brought up a moment ago. But I would like to add that you can select yourself here as well, just in case your signature is needed on that document. Besides these two fields, you'll be able to adjust more things, but more importantly, enable knowledge-based authentication, or as you can see here, KBA, and enable reminders. Now, this is simply another layer of verification that is required for certain IRS forms, such as the 8879 form. Now, if you're not in the US, well, this isn't important to you, so you don't really have to worry about it. As for the reminders, you'll see the option to enable those on other things you might send out as well. So if you turn them on, the client will get reminder emails that they need to take care of something. So it is generally a good idea to enable these. So to reiterate, the most important part of this process, you just select the signer, then drag the field in before clicking the send button. It's as simple as that. Now, there are more functions here besides these three that we haven't talked about, but it isn't really necessary to dedicate time to them today since everything is very simple. So instead, we will leave some resources in the chat and you can check what other features are all about. Okay, so now let's just slightly shift topics a little bit here. Since we just talked about how to interact with your documents, let's talk about a way to interact with your clients, or more specifically, how to do it in bulk. If I go back to my clients page, I will see boxes on the left of the accounts. If I go ahead and tick some of these, a new menu bar will appear above the list. By using any of these options up here, I can do actions for all these selected clients, whether that be sending an organizer, a message, or anything else that you can choose here. As an example, we talked a little earlier about syncing your email to TaxDome. So let's use an example relevant to that. If I wanted to send out an email to all of my payroll clients to inform them of something, I could filter my accounts list to see all the accounts with the payroll tag, select everybody by ticking the box at the top of the list, and then click on the send email button. At that point, I just need to either compose an email or I can use a template and send it out. The email would then be sent to everybody that I selected. And it's equally simple for all the other bulk actions. So don't expect yourself to run into issues with any of this. It's nice and easy. And as easy as it is to do something for one client, again, it's just as easy to do it for multiple clients all at the same time. Also, you likely noticed by now that there's an option to send emails and also another to send chat messages. I just want to help you understand the difference here. Emails are regular emails with the added benefit that TaxDome offers you. Messages, on the other hand, are a secure alternative for communicating with your clients. They are stored in TaxDome and only accessible through the portal or through the mobile app. In addition to that, they give you several more options like embedding videos and adding client tasks that appear like checklists for the clients. If you create a test account for yourself, like we talked about a little earlier today, I would suggest trying to send out different elements to that account so you can see how they work. For example, you just saw the menu for sending an email, but I'll pull it up again so you can take another look. We can compare this to something like sending out an invoice. Even though you do both from either the plus new menu or the bulk action menu, the actual details you can modify will be different. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that it's difficult to create an invoice or any of the elements, but since it is different, it would be good to try it out and just to see exactly what you are expected to enter. Though just another reminder, templates make life very easy. So if your firm has already created templates for everything, well, it will be as simple as selecting it and then maybe changing one or two things if you need to. Now, while we're on this topic, if you find yourself in a position where you don't have templates, but you see yourself benefiting from them, then just make them yourself. I mentioned at the beginning of the webinar that you need certain access rights to be able to use specific functions in TaxStone. As long as your firm gave you the necessary permissions to create them, you can go and then create templates from the tab up here. From here, you'll have access to all these subtabs where you'll be able to either create new templates or in some cases, copy some from our templates library. Again, we will leave some resources in the chat about templates in case you end up wanting to create some for yourself. Next up, we will want to talk about tasks and jobs. But before that, we're going to take another little break here. As always, take this opportunity to write some notes, post some questions, do anything else that you need. We'll be back in just a minute. We'll give you a few seconds on this, and then we will get started on jobs and tasks. All right, everybody, the recess bell has just rang, so let us all get back to work here. We'll first go over the terminology related to your work just to make sure you understand the differences, just like how we did when we explained accounts and contacts. Afterwards, we'll first take a look at the workflow page and then the tabs inside of it to show you the ways you can keep up with everything. So let's start with this. The workflow is the umbrella term that covers everything work-related, but the main terms that you need to know about are the pipelines, stages, jobs, and tasks. Pipelines represent the whole process that you will do for a specific service. This means that the pipeline itself is the process, and because of that, you'll have it split into stages, meaning the steps that you need to take to complete that process. Stages are simply the steps in that process. Jobs are those same processes, but for certain clients. Jobs always need to be in a pipeline. So depending on what the job is for, you will add it to the appropriate pipeline. And finally, tasks are just the individual actions you or your team need to complete. So to give you an example, we prepared this slide. So let's take a very close look at it. This example is for tax return process, but it's applicable basically for any other service you provide. You can see that the pipeline is the whole process that's broken down into several steps, or in other words, stages. Then you have the clients you're providing the service for added as jobs into the pipeline. And lastly, you'll have the individual things that you need to do, like preparing or reviewing or e-filing the return as tasks. So there's a clear hierarchy here when it comes to how you'll approach this. Your process might look a little different than what I have here in this example, but it will all follow the same logic. Okay, I will switch back to my portal now, and I will show you how you'll keep up with everything. Normally, when we talk about the workflow, we start with the pipelines, but this time we'll switch it up a bit. We're going to go over the tasks tab first. The reason for that is you'll generally visit this page the most. From here, you can interact with them, open them to view their details, change their status, filter them, and do anything else you might need. This is the most important page to you as an employee. This is where you will see everything that you need to take care of right now, no matter the service, the pipeline, or anything else. It's a simple to-do list for you, and thanks to it, you don't need to look at a bigger picture, but instead you can just focus on what's important for you to work on right now. As you go through them one by one, you can change the status simply by hovering over it and then selecting a different one from the list. If you need more information regarding the task before you can start your work, you can click on the name of the job and it will open up all of its details. Alternatively, you can also open the client account directly from here by clicking on the account name right here in this column. So you have all the information you need, easily accessible, all in one place. In most cases, the majority of your tasks will be created through a pipeline's automations, meaning that nobody has to actually manually create each task, but instead, TaxDome handles that for you once something needs to be done for a client. However, if you do need to create a brand new task right now, right on the spot, you can use your trusty plus new menu, select task, and enter the details that you need. As I explained earlier, jobs need to be in a pipeline, but tasks do not. They can be linked to jobs or just be fully standalone tasks, not connected to anything else, so you can set up your task to remind you to do something important. On top of that, while you're setting up the task here, you can also make it a recurring task. You just need to enable this toggle right down here and then enter the recurrence details. Once you create a recurring task, you'll still be able to tell it apart from regular ones by this little icon right here. So, regardless of the type of task, you will always find everything you need to do in the Tasks tab. Therefore, it is one of the first places you will visit every day, and also the place you'll keep coming back to very regularly. So we should also briefly talk about pipelines and jobs right now. Despite the fact that you'll spend most of your time interacting with tasks, you might occasionally need to do more than that. And even if you don't, it's still good to understand the basics at least. Let me go into the Pipelines tab up here. The first thing that you will see there will be a list of different pipelines that you have access to. Very similar to how it worked for accounts, you won't be able to see all of them unless your firm gave you access to every pipeline that has been created. For you, it just makes things more convenient because you know that you don't need to pay attention to anything outside of the processes that you can already see. I'll open up one of these and you will see the same view as in the example that I showed you a couple of minutes ago. Since you will primarily use the Tasks tab to keep track of your work, we will keep this brief. So once again, the columns will be the different steps of the process. The cards in them are the jobs, and then inside the jobs, you'll have all the linked elements, which can be tasks, pending client items, documents, or anything else related to the job. So in your case, you might be responsible for the whole process, or maybe you'll just have to take care of certain stages in the process. This will vary for each firm that's out there, and of course, for each employee. So I really can't tell you exactly what you'll be doing. But in general, it will boil down to completing tasks, which will automatically be created for you as part of a pipeline's automation. Since right now we are in a tax preparation pipeline, I will use an example for that. If you're the one who handles the actual tax preparation, then you'll want to focus on all jobs you see sitting in the preparation stage. Now, when I say focus, I mean specifically to take care of your pending tasks. As I mentioned, the preparation task will be created automatically once the job reaches this stage. So all you have to do is complete whatever the task tells you to do and then mark the task as complete. You can do it right here from within the job by hovering over the status of the task and changing it. You can also do it from the Tasks tab like I showed you earlier. Both ways achieve the same result. So you can do this whichever way you find most convenient for yourself. After marking the task as done, the job will then automatically move forward into the next stage, unless there are some more pending actions left or your firm wants to manually move them, which can be done by simply dragging the job card over. The job moving forward will lead to new tasks and new automations being triggered for the correct people responsible for completing those, meaning either someone from your team or maybe even your client. Also, just remember that if you created something new as part of your task, meaning something like an invoice or you upload a document, make sure to link it to the job by using this button up here. That way, it will be accessible directly from the job, making everybody's life much easier since you'll have all the relevant information all in one place. Therefore, your role boils down to getting your work assigned to you automatically, linking some elements to the relevant job if necessary, and then marking the task as completed once you finish it. It isn't intimidating when we break it down to the core functions that are important to you, right? This is actually very, very easy to do, and we know you're going to jump right into it. Now, there isn't too much more to know about this functionality, but let's quickly go over the Jobs tab and explain why you would want to go there. This pipeline view makes it really easy to keep track of things since you've got this Kanban board right here. However, if you're juggling a lot of work and need to keep track of many jobs and tasks, you might prefer to see your jobs similar to how you see your tasks in the Tasks tab. That's where the Jobs tab comes into play. Let me just open it up, and here you go. A full list of all my jobs. You'll be able to interact with them the exact same way by opening any of them. But the main advantage is that you're not limited to just seeing the jobs related to one of the services you're providing. So if you're working on multiple types of jobs like tax preparation, bookkeeping, and maybe even payroll or something else, you can view all of them here without needing to go to different pipelines. Additionally, as is the case with most other pages you've seen today, you have a filter button up here. So you can always control exactly what you see. There's also a recurring jobs tab up here. Similar to how your tasks can repeat, jobs can do the same, but they have a separate tab for easier management. This, again, is something that has already been set up by your team in most cases, so we don't need to worry about that for now. We will leave a help article in the chat that goes over this in more detail, so if you'd like, you can check that out a little bit later on if you're curious. Once again, though, the important thing for you are the tasks, so you generally don't need to worry as much about the jobs outside of linking your work to them. Additionally, it's good to remember that you can leave updates inside jobs and tasks. Whether that be in the description or in the comments, you can write anything you need right there. And if necessary, you can even mention somebody from your team using the @ symbol to notify them. This mention function is available in other places besides comments and descriptions, most notably in secure messages and account notes. So if you ever need to share an update with your team, this is the perfect tool to help you with that. Okay, the last thing that I want to mention before we move on to more practical part of this webinar is the time tracking. Considering we just talked about the ways you will track your work, we should also mention how you will track your time that you've spent doing that work. If your firm decides to use TaxDome's built-in time tracker, then it's really as simple as clicking on this new time entry button at the top of your screen and selecting which client you're working on. You can then add more details if necessary. Tracking your work time will help your team bill your clients accurately, so do not forget to use this function. It is very important. All right then, well, that covers all of that. And I believe that those were all the important functions that you need to know about today. So we're going to take another short break here to prepare for the final part of this webinar, where we won't talk about theory as much, but we will give you a guide on what to do in order to be efficient right off the bat. So for now, let's take a few moments here, send us any questions in the Q&A, and we will pick this up again right after our short little break. Okay, everybody, break time over here. So we are back, and let's get you ready for some actual work. We'll start right here at the Insights page because that's the first place that you will see when you log in. You will do one of two things while you're here. You can check this to-do section, which shows you the tasks that are due today by default. So it's likely that these are your highest priority tasks, and you might want to start working on these right away. Now, the other thing that you can do is head to the Inbox Plus. As I mentioned at the very beginning of this webinar, this is where you'll see all the news that's important to you. Therefore, it makes perfect sense for you to check it as soon as you log in and start your day. Go through the notifications one by one and plan what order you'll tackle your responsibilities in. So if you're a receptionist who will handle assigning clients to the different team members, you might have a task to reassign some clients to a different team member. So you can start with that. You would go to your clients list, select the clients you need to reassign, and use the Manage Team Bulk action. There, you just need to remove the previous assignee and select the new one before confirming the change. Or you might have had a new client that reached out to your firm and you need to add them into TaxDome. Well, that's easy enough to do. Use the Plus New menu, select Account, and enter their details. If you don't have all their information, well, that's okay. You can still create their account and contact with what you have right now. As long as you have their name and email address, you can give them access to the portal, and any other details can be added at a later point if you need to do that. So after you create the account, you can also let your team know any important details in a note. Use the Plus New menu to create one, and make sure to mention the correct team member using the @ symbol. That way, they're going to be notified once you create that note. So let's switch to the other team member now. What would they do after you mention them in the note? Well, they're going to check their Inbox Plus, read your note, and do whatever work might be necessary. In this case, I have to add them to my prospect pipeline since we are missing some information and we want to be sure that we actually want to work with these people. So I'll add a job for them via the Plus New menu as usual. I just need to select the correct pipeline, and the rest of the information will automatically populate as long as your admins have set them up correctly. What's left for you to do is just adjust any details if necessary and add the job. But you'll also get a chance to confirm the automations that will be used in the first stage of this prospect pipeline. So if you found yourself in a case where you might not need some of them to trigger, well, great, you can control it. By the way, just as a reminder, if you're creating jobs or tasks for multiple clients, then make sure to do it in bulk from the clients list instead of from the Plus New menu. It will be quicker that way. And you can always filter your list to make finding the right group of clients so much easier. All right, so now that that's taken care of, I'm going to go back to my Inbox Plus because I saw another important notification here. The client submitted an organizer, which are our built-in questionnaires. I will need to check their answers and the documents they uploaded. So I'll click here to view everything. And let's say the client didn't send in all the documents that I needed to work on their tax return. Well, what should I do next? I'll reach out to the client by sending them a secure message. As usual, you can use the plus new menu and select chat. Compose your message to tell them that you still need some information, and then add some client tasks that they will be able to tick off once they did what you've just asked them to do. And that's another thing taken care of for now. So I'll go and check my tasks list to see what else I have to do. Now, to reiterate, you'll find your full list by going to the workflow page and then the tasks tab. So let's see here. I have a task to pull some bank statements for a bookkeeping job. Well, that seems simple enough. I would collect the information I need, and then I would want to upload those documents. Just like with the other steps, the fastest way is likely to do it via the plus new menu. Select the documents, pick the client and folder, but before uploading it, make sure to link the document to the job. As we mentioned earlier, it's really convenient to have all the tasks, proposals, documents, and everything else all in one place. So if they're all linked to the same job, it's very easy for the entire team to find what they need very quickly. Once I finish the upload, I will just make sure to mark the task as completed, and I can move on to whatever I'm supposed to do next that's on my list. So to summarize this part, you will want to regularly check two places, your Inbox Plus and your tasks list. That's where you'll see everything that is important to you. You can, of course, visit other places like the pipeline or any of the other pages that you can access here on the left. But generally, if you're trying to get your work done every day, the two things that I just mentioned will be your most visited areas. Now let's take a look at two more examples, and then we'll wrap things up after that. We don't want to forget about the Windows app, considering we spent a couple minutes talking about it earlier. Let's use another tax prep example. If you prepared the draft and you will need to request a signature from the client, the easiest way is to handle everything through the app. I will just use an 8879 form here just for my example, just like earlier, but you can do this with any documents you want. I'm just using this as an example. I'll click on Print, choose the TaxDome printer, select the client, and then the folder. Now, in addition to that, I can set up the signature request directly right here in the app, but I can also link it to a job right from here. This way, you take care of several steps all at once instead of doing them all separately. It's not only easy to get documents from other softwares into TaxDome like this, but you make the entire process a lot smoother. Finally, don't forget about the TaxDome Drive. Upload things through it if you find that's more convenient for you than using the portal, and also use it to move or edit existing files. That's fine as well. Whether it's a timesheet that needs editing or anything else, you can just open it directly on your computer, edit it, and save it, and it will be synced to your TaxDome account. This is going to save you a ton of headaches since you won't need to deal with downloading and re-uploading files constantly. All right then. Well, I think that covers everything. So let's take one final break, and then we're going to recap what we talked about here today. This is also going to be everybody's final chance to answer your questions during this webinar. So I'm going to take a short little break here, let everybody get their questions in there, and then we will wrap everything up. Okay, everybody, we'll keep this break a little shorter. Remember, if you're still typing right now and getting your questions in there, no problem. Keep plugging away, and our team will be happy to answer those as quickly as possible for you. So with that, we have reached the end of today's session. So let's go over what we talked about today. We started today's session with a quick overview of all the main pages in TaxDome, and then we began our journey through the functions that you will be using most often. So we talked about how accounts work, where you will find your documents, how you'll upload new ones, and of course, what you can do with them once you have them in TaxDome. After all of that, we took a moment to show you the bulk actions menu so you can interact more easily with multiple clients at once. We then moved on to focus on where you'll keep track of all your work, meaning your jobs and your tasks. And finally, after we talked about how everything worked, we took some time to give you a closer look at the most common ways that you will tackle your work day to day. It sounds much shorter than it actually was when I put it like that, but I'm sure you'd agree that it's best to talk about everything instead of just telling you about one or two little points and then leaving you on your own to figure things out on your own. That's not what we're here for. What you learned today should have provided you with a very strong base to work with. And if everything was clear, then I'm sure you'll be able to get some real work done in no time. If you do want to learn more about the features that we covered today, then feel free to visit our Help Center, or even better, what we call our TaxDome Academy. There, we have courses that cover everything in TaxDome and a lot more details. So that is the best place to learn at your own pace. As for what you should do now, well, I would recommend logging into your portal and playing around with the functions that I showed you. Create a test client. Try out what you saw in this webinar just to get familiar with it. That is really the best way to become confident in your skills and get very familiar with the system. So everybody, I think that is a good point for us to stop. So let me thank all of you for taking the time to watch this entire webinar. I know we talked about a lot today. You've all been troopers for making it all the way through to the end, but what we covered pretty much is everything that you need to know. The recording of this is also going to be available to you. So if you'd like to revisit today's session whenever you like, we will be sending that your way as well. That'll be it for today then. So thank you all once again. I certainly hope you all have a successful week ahead. Take care, everybody. Thanks again.